Good evening. Regular school board meeting for October 11, 2016 is now in session. Pam, roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Present.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Mrs. Henderson?
Here.
Mrs. Nisi?
Here.
And Mr. Ziegler.
Here. At this time, I would like to request a moment of silence for a member of our BPS family who recently passed away, Miss Ashley Machado, a personal care assistant at Johnson Middle School. Thank you. Our condolences go out to her family and to her friends. This evening, we have with us Cub Scout Troop Pack 369 from Merritt Island. They are observing the board meeting to earn one of their badges, and we have the pleasure of having them lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and they are going to walk in with the flag. So I'd like to ask everybody to rise as they bring in the flag, and please remember to keep your hand over your heart as the flag is moving. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you very much. Before we move any further, I'd like to offer my fellow board members the opportunity to recognize any staff, students, and community members. Any board members? Ms. Henderson? I did. Go ahead.
Well, in light of the last weekend, our entire staff, the cabinet, superintendent, everyone from our custodians on who had to set up all of our schools to be shelters, to put everything in place, to our technology people who allowed us to have paychecks this week, which is pretty important to everybody, especially after this weekend. I just want to thank everybody for working together as a team, as Brevard Public Schools always does. When push comes to shove, I believe Brevard Public Schools can rise above anyone else and do it better than anyone else because we work as a team and we care about each other and our community. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that put in all the hard hours this weekend.
Mrs. Nisi.
I'll just ditto the same thing. I was here during the 2004 storms, the 2006 storms, and now I can say I was here for the 2016 storms, and I have to say, Dr. Blackburn, this was probably the smoothest round yet, and let's just hope this will be the last round. But this was the smoothest ever. Major Moros, do you really feel like that it's only been 6 months, but you've been here 6 years now with everything since? But communication to us, Dr. Blackburn, I felt like I knew what was going on every day, every hour. Thank you for that. Thank you to the principals who opened up their buildings as shelters. Thank you to the staff that I know put in 24 hours days and then turned right around and opened up schools today. Thank you to the parents who were cooperative in the kids going out, kids coming back in, and seeing everything that had to happen for that, and all of the volunteers, the Red Cross, the multiple agencies that helped out at those shelters. There were literally thousands of people that volunteered, that worked this weekend to ensure that Brevard County was safe, and I just want to put out a big thank you to everyone.
Mrs. Belford.
I would certainly
ditto what my fellow board members said, and just to expand slightly on that, I had 3 shelters in District 1 that were open, and I visited them on the first day they opened before the storm hit, and then I visited them the day after the storm had cleared. And I have to tell you, every single one of our staff members were so incredibly complimentary of the other organizations that were working with us. Of course, in the North End, it was Titusville Police Department and Brevard County Sheriff's Office, as well as we had volunteers there from Brevard County Parks and Recreation. There were multiple agencies that came together to provide support in the shelter, and all of the principals were just singing the praises. One of our shelters in the North End was a special needs shelter, which meant that they had lots of medically needy patients. And the nursing staff was phenomenal in assisting with all of that, and things went so incredibly smoothly. So absolutely, thank you to all of our staff here at BPS, but also thank you to all of our partners that helped it go smoothly as well.
Mr. Craig.
Dr. Blackburn, just to reiterate on top of the things that have been said, but your staff and your cabinet and your staff knocked it out of the park. So as you know, emergency management is what I do in the Navy. As I sat there in the Emergency Operations Center up in Jacksonville, I knew what was going on back here on a minute-by-minute basis. The way you all plugged in, the communication you had, the ability to integrate with the county and their emergency operations staff was critical to making sure that this district was able to open this morning. So outstanding job, facilities, being out there over the weekend and getting things cleaned up so that parents could drop their kids off at school was fantastic. I want to mention the, you sent out the text, I think, and I think we all read in the newspaper about the Titusville high school students who went out in the community and just jumped to and started helping people. I am sure that they were not the only ones, but that is just, as I've said before, if that is the future of our county, we're in a really, really good place. So great job to our principals who continue to instill values like that, that continue to show leadership and inspire our youth to be their very best and to treat others with respect and dignity and a helping hand. So thank you very much, and please make sure that your staff understands how much we appreciate what they do.
Well, clearly agree with everything that's been said. I don't need to repeat that. I would like to thank Dr. Blackburn and leadership for sending out a very important message at the beginning of this event about how important it is for people to come first and to accommodate our employees in any way, shape, or form to make sure that they feel safe and they are excused to do whatever they have to do to take care of themselves and their families. I think that was an extremely important message and very well received. I'd also like to specifically point out kudos to FPL, who work very closely with our staff and very hard to not just get the community up, but also to get our schools back and going as quickly as possible. I think I heard they had something like 15,000 people, workers imported in from all over to make that happen. I can't imagine what the logistics are for getting power back online, but thank you to FPL for what they did. I'd also like to take the opportunity to recognize special guests in the audience. County Commissioner Chairman Jim Barfield, welcome, thank you. And if you'd like to come up, Mr. Barfield, and say anything, you're welcome to speak to the board. Take a moment, sure.
I'm here for another reason, but it seems like we had a little event this weekend that kind of happened, I spent more time with your superintendent I think I ever have, and it was nice and warm and cozy in that place, in the Emergency Operations Center. But seriously, I think, it's my first time as being operational in the Emergency Operations Center. And I have to say, the coordination between the school system, the shelters, everything, the logistics of how do you feed people in the shelter, all the logistics of everything that happened with all the things that were going on was amazing, and it went smoothly. We have things to improve upon, but I think the most important thing is we show that our whole community comes together when we have to. When the chips are down, we all come together and we make it work. And that's what we had. We had people volunteering after the fact, cleaning up this, I enjoy it. I have a chainsaw, so I got to use it a lot, you know, but it really was. It was heartwarming to see how everything came together. And I think you guys are a reflection of our community and what we're doing with our kids. And I'm just glad to see that, you know, everything worked out well. And thanks for what y'all do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
Mr. Ziegler and members of the board, on tonight's agenda, we have 1 recognition item, 1 resolution, 11 consent items, 4 action items, 2 information items, and 1 staff report. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. There is a revision to item C6 on National Bullying Prevention Month, a revision to item F9 on instructional staff recommendations, and a revision to G20 on purchasing solicitations and G21 on department school-initiated agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Nisi, second by Mrs. Henderson. Any discussion? Not hearing any, please vote. Passes 5-0. Okay, Dr. Blackburn, please tell us about the recognition item on this evening's agenda, please.
Item B5 is to recognize Brevard County Commission Chair Jim Barfield and the Public Works Department team for their work on the South Courtney Parkway Sidewalk Relocation Project. Here to make the presentation is Sue Hahn, Director of Planning and Project Management. Ms. Hahn.
Good evening, everyone. Hearing about this weekend's events, I'm so encouraged because we do have a great relationship with Brevard County, and this is a small project, but it was a very important project in our community. And let me show you what we started with. This is South Courtney Parkway, just south of Tropical Elementary School, and former principal Samantha Allison is here this evening. She kind of got us started on this project and had Karina and I and Lieutenant Scully and others out in the field watching the interaction between the kids and the parents and the cars and the bikes, and it was pretty much mayhem out there. And so we came together and thought maybe we could do something together. The road is under the county's jurisdiction. A lot of our kids and parents are using the facility. Let's see what we can do together. So we worked together, proposed an interlocal agreement, a very easy document, came to the school board, came to the county commission, Commissioner Barfield took it through the county commission, and we were able to produce great results together. And so a project that cost us each about $85,000 was able to greatly improve the safety for not only our school kids, but for the community as well that uses this facility. And these are the folks that made it happen. And I just wanted to recognize and thank them in public for being such great partners. They were with us all the way. And a number of folks on John's staff did the administrative work and helped us. Commission Chair, Mr. Barfield, did a great job bringing this through the County Commission. John is our Public Works Director, Mr. Denninghoff, Karina Gum, Traffic Operations Manager, and Bruce Black, our Construction Manager. He is the guy that built it. And we didn't give him nearly enough time to do so, and the weather didn't completely cooperate, but he made it happen, and it opened before school started. So we were ready, they were ready, and we just appreciate this partnership so much, and we hope to work together with them in the future on other projects where our needs intersect and we can collaborate. And so with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the county's team and your effort, and ask Commissioner Barfield if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, ditto the thank you. I mean, Bruce, Karina, Sue, and Allison, who didn't come up here with us, but that's okay, Principal Allison. But thank you so much. I mean, this is an opportunity. This was a $166,000 operation. We split it 50-50, and we jumped together, again, like I was talking about with community, and that's what we did. We got this project. But most importantly, it's the safety of the kids, because it used to be where, because I live not too far from there, and you can see there are kids getting out on the sidewalk where cars were parking on the sidewalk, and it just doesn't work that way. So all this team got together and they came up with a way to make this work, and they put it together and did it pretty fast. How fast was that done? It was like overnight. It seemed like it was done very quickly. but that shows what we can do. And so I think we're going to see more where the county government and the school board system, I think we can work together on a lot of things. Because you know what? When you split something like that, we're also getting more bang for the buck for both of our budgets. And that's good too. And we're also the safety of our kids. And so we look forward to doing more of these. But I want to thank all of these people. They're the ones who really did it. They just gave it to me, and I had to get 2 more votes. So thank you very much.
Any board members have anything?
I used to ride that section of road when I was in junior high, from Catalina Isles down to Jefferson Junior High. So I know exactly where you're talking about and how close that sidewalk has always been to the road. So great job, and I'm glad that we could partner on something like this, because I think it's good for our community.
Mr. Craig?
Thank you very much for making this happen. But Samantha Allison, sitting back there, is really probably the linchpin. She started this. She recognized the need. She came up with a plan and moved it forward. And so, thank you for doing that. But thank you for the leadership that you show, and by example for all the other principals to get involved. You see an issue, you see a problem, and you go and you find a way to fix it, and then you let the people figure out how to pay for it. But you did a great job, so thank you very much, and I know the community thanks you very much, because that was well needed, and it is much safer because of you. Thank you.
And I'd like to add our thanks for your partnership, but I know that you're all criticized on a regular basis for the challenges you have with your roads and your construction, all that stuff, your revenue challenges. I want to let you know that, not just as a board member, but as a citizen, I greatly appreciate what you do accomplish with what little you have, and we're very aware that your uphill battle is going to be never-ending based on revenue. So thank you for what you do accomplish. It does mean a lot to us, and I wish this county really appreciated the effort that you put in to make things happen. Dr. Blackburn.
Definitely want to thank you, Commissioner Barfield, and the team for the partnership, and just maybe talk about the word partnership for just a moment. And given what we went through this past weekend, I know it's a county priority to start working on a new emergency operations center, and certainly in short order, I'd like to bring a proposal to the board on how we can use some of our resources to help in that effort. So hope to get that done in short order, but expanding on our partnership to make sure we take care of our residents.
Mrs. Belford.
Certainly want to piggyback and thank you all for the wonderful partnership and working together to keep our children safe. I would also like to extend a thank you to Dr. Blackburn for his leadership and the focus on collaborative efforts as a whole throughout the county. I think that you certainly have made that a priority since you've come on board, and I think that's very important and part of the reason that we're able to make these types of things happen. And then, of course, thank you to my fellow board members as well for supporting those types of initiatives as we go forward, because I think it takes a village.
Because he's a Gator, so it makes it easier.
You had to bring that up. You had to bring that up. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Let's just, okay, Dr. Blackburn, resolutions and proclamations.
Mr. Ziegler, item C6 is a resolution declaring October as National Bullying Prevention Month. Mrs. Irwin will read it to us.
Whereas thousands of Florida children and adolescents are affected by bullying annually, and whereas 77% of all children in school are bullied verbally, of those, 28% are also bullied through physical abuse, and whereas targets of bullying are more likely to acquire physical, emotional, and learning problems, and students who are repeatedly bullied often fear such activities as riding the bus, going to school, and attending community activities, and whereas children who bullied are at greater risk of engaging in more serious, violent behaviors, and whereas children who witness bullying often feel less secure, more fearful, and intimidated. Now, therefore, I, Rick Scott, Governor of the State of Florida, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as National Bullying Prevention Month and urge all Floridians to support activities that promote healthy child, youth, and character development.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve?
Second.
Who seconded that, Mrs. Henderson? It wasn't. Okay. Moved by Mrs. Nisi, second Mrs. Henderson. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
So pursuant to the last time we had a proclamation, what does this mean for us? Do we use this as a springboard to get training? Is there information associated with it? I mean, this is a pretty important topic and very relevant to things that we've been discussing over the last few months and part of the strategic plan. I would just like to know how this affect, what does this do for us? How does this make us better?
Truthfully speaking, other than the celebratory nature of our proclamations, and I remember that conversation from last board meeting, really don't have my arms wrapped around that, but it's certainly a priority to bring back some kind of a plan or understanding about what these proclamations mean above the celebratory nature.
Yeah, I appreciate that because this is a great opportunity then to put a anti-bullying campaign around it, and use this as a springboard to do that. And go ahead.
Hi, I'm Melissa Gatakis, Director for Students at Risk, and we do have some things going on to address this during the month of October. Prior to this month, we had the Anti-Bullying Summit, which included all the secondary, middle and secondary programs. They sent teams of students here. We had over 140 students that participated, and it was a kickoff for them to do their anti-bullying campaigns throughout the year. We also have resources from our office that are sent out, links to different resources that are sent out to schools, elementary schools. In addition to that, as part of the bullying policy that we're required to update this year, schools are required to do some type of initiative throughout the school year that deals with anti-bullying strategies and interventions at the school.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll just add that I've always felt a lot of this is just bringing awareness and helping to promote the topic. But I would like to congratulate the students in our schools for their peer-to-peer efforts in anti-bullying. I think it's probably one of the most successful efforts that are going on is when peers help themselves. I know the Scouts are probably a big part of that in promoting anti-bullying, but students seem to be doing the best job of getting that job done as opposed to us. So anything the students need, I think we should be there to support these groups that they have. Any further discussion? Let's vote. Passes 5-0. Boy, the system's working very well tonight. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Just I knew you were going to do that. I had to throw it out there. We are now at public comments. The maximum allotted time for each speaker is 3 minutes. Clarification of information presented and answers to questions specific to district business and educational matters will be posted on the school board's website under a section called For the Record. Please be reminded that profane, abusive, or slanderous speech is not permitted. I request that you speak into the microphone, state your name. And if we can get the podium rolled up, thank you, Pam. And I think we only have one speaker, our token rep Anthony Colucci, come on up. The floor is, and the night is all yours.
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the Vice President of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. So being I'm a teacher on leave this year, I didn't want my fellow teachers to accuse me of not writing a PGP. So I went ahead and I wrote a PGP, except I wrote it for you and not for me. So I was looking at the IPIS to see areas that could be improved. And I looked at Dimension 5, which is professional responsibilities and ethical conduct. And then I looked at Element 4, which is about initiates professional communication with appropriate stakeholders. So I felt this was an area that the district was falling in the developing range. And I've switched a couple words on the rubric to make it pertain to teachers rather than students and families. So on the developing rubric, number 1 says, participates in activities for teacher communication, but offers limited information regarding the instructional program. Number 2 says, partially addresses teachers' concerns with little or no follow-up. And 3 says, makes minimal attempts to connect teachers to the instructional program. So I feel that's where the district is right now with the teachers. And I'm hoping to get us to distinguished. Number 1 says, promotes a two-way partnership between district and teachers. 2, maintains regular communication between district and teachers regarding the instructional program. 3, connects frequently and successfully to teachers. 4, teachers understand what they are expected to know and be able to do. So the goal is to get us from developing to distinguished. Now, I chose option B, which is the drop-down menus, but I created my own work plan strategies to make sure that it was deeply embedded. The first work plan strategy is for union and district to attend the TURN conference in Tampa, January 19th through 20th. That is the Teacher Union Reform Network. It's something that we've been attending and it's really responsible for a lot of the progress that we've made. Number 2, and this is something that's already been going on, so I will thank Dr. Kinn and Rick Morton for doing so. The Deputy Superintendent and Director of Labor Relations will schedule and hold meetings with union leadership, and we're going to do that bi-weekly. Every couple weeks, we have a whole host of issues that we need answers to. Number 3, and Dr. Blackburn gets an A+ on his homework, the superintendent will schedule and hold meetings with union leadership monthly. Number 4, senior staff will seek union input before rolling out new initiatives, significant changes, new software, etc. That's going to go on throughout the year, I hope. We've seen some movement in that direction. And 4, board members will individually schedule and hold face-to-face or phone meetings with union leadership in order to seek feedback for all parties in the plan and provide opportunities for reflection. And then finally, this will strengthen the performance by proactively communicating with representatives of the BPS teachers. This will help prevent issues before they arise. This plan will be a platform for teacher voice to be heard, which will not only improve morale, but increase student achievement. So I'll pass you along a copy of the plan. Hopefully we'll have it in writing and we'll make it happen now. And I look forward to you reaching out to me. Thank you.
If you could email that to us, that'd be great. If you notice, I gave you some extra time because I'm in the process of evaluating your PGP writing skills. You should have talked to me beforehand. I would have gladly done that if it would have upset Dan.
And Mr. Ziegler
Yes,
and Mr. Colucci, the TURN conference last year was very, very good, so I do look forward to participating again this year.
Okay, that's it for public speakers. The board wishes to thank this evening's speaker. Your willingness to speak to the board is appreciated. That moves us to the consent agenda. Dr. Blackburn. Take your time, sir. We're way ahead of schedule.
There are 11 agenda items under this category, 2 with prior information.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Blackburn. Does any board member wish to pull any consent items? No, amazing. In that case, I'll entertain a motion for consent.
Move to approve.
Second.
The other side of the bench. Moved by Mr. Craig, second by Mrs. Belford. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, please vote. Okay. Usually we take a break about now, but I think we're a little too early. Let's just keep rolling. All right, we'll move on to the action agenda, Dr. Blackburn.
There are 4 items for your consideration. First is item G19, which is to hold a public hearing and approve the revisions to policy 6480 on expenditures.
Okay, public hearing is now declared open. Are there any individuals who wish to speak on policy 6480? Again, anybody who wishes to speak on policy 6480? Not having any speakers, hearing is closed. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Belford, second by Mrs. Henderson. Is there any discussion?
I think you two are waiting for us to approve are you waiting for us to approve? We did that, so you can go if you want. I just wanted you to not have to sit through the rest of the meeting if you didn't want to.
I actually told them they could go before it started, but great seeing you guys.
Thank you for coming and enjoy your trip.
Good catch. Showing our only audience, and you sent them home. Oh, I'm sorry. My peripheral vision. Okay, where are we? The vote. All right. Let's please vote. All right, passes 5-0, and thank you to staff for making those corrections that were brought up at the last meeting. Dr. Blackburn.
Next is item G20 on purchasing solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
To approve.
Again.
Wow, it almost failed without a second there. Moved by Mrs. Belford, second by Mrs. Henderson. Any discussion? No, not hearing any. Once Pam posts it, please vote. Passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn.
Item G21 is on department and school-initiated agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, Mrs. Belford, seconded by Mrs. Henderson. Any discussion? Not hearing any, please vote. Wow, moving right along. And Dr. Blackburn, last one.
Item G22 is to DCR and replace portable T417 at Indian Atlantic Elementary School.
What are the wishes of the board?
Absolutely move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Nisi, second by Mrs. Henderson. Any discussion? No? Then please vote. Uh-oh. What happened? Up there it is, 5-0. Had an error pop up on my screen. Okay, that'll move us to the information agenda, which includes item for board review and will be brought back for action at a subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items tonight. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 2 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss anything on information? Yeah, get done pretty quick here if we don't talk about something. Okay. We'll blame you. We only got 2 meetings left to blame you, so we better do some serious blaming. All right. Due to Mrs. Nisi, Dr. Blackburn, will you please tell us about staff's report on tonight's agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Tonight I'm going to provide the board and viewing audience with an update and information on the challenge materials administrative procedures. I believe you have the before administrative procedure and the after effect, just to give you some information on what was done to create this. And I know the board isn't voting on it, but just to give you some information. There was a survey conducted, sent via Blackboard to all parents and staff. We had 48 administrative respondents, 312 teachers responded, 349 parents responded, and 5 students responded. The data collected on how we could better, or informed us on how we could better proceed through the process when material is challenged. So amendments to the procedures include the method in which the meetings are held, who is on the committee, how we advise our communities of the process, and how we communicate within our district and with parents. The outcome is we have expanded the voice of parents and students and have added steps to support the teachers in the learning environment. Our procedures that you see before you follow those suggested by the American Library Association.
Anybody have any input or thoughts or questions about the procedures? I have one. Why don't you go first?
Well, first off, as I stated in the email I sent out earlier today, Mrs. Klein and I have worked extensively on this, and I want to thank her for putting up with me over the past several months as we went back and forth on this. So Jane, thank you. We worked on this extensively, and the procedure in front of you is very much improved. So there are some points that I posed questions in the email I sent to you, and as per Sunshine, I asked you not to respond back. But there are some questions that I feel need to be answered that the policy doesn't cover, and I'm just going to revisit these, and I think we need to have some discussion over them. One of them that I just want to make sure the board is comfortable with is that the current procedure would allow the book or material to be removed at one school and not another. And so if the board's okay with that, so a school could decide, let's say it's a high school book or material. One high school could say they're not comfortable with it, whereas another high school would be okay with it. And so I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. And so my question of that is, at what point, if 2 or 3 schools then decide a work is not appropriate, does there come a point where it needs to be removed or brought to the board's attention? So that was a question I have. So at what point do enough schools remove a work or a book? Do we need to have it just, is it controversial enough that it does not need to be in our schools? So that was a question I had. Another question is, what happens if the committee has a tie? So I kind of had a question about that. The other thing I had is, although, as I said, the good news is, in the 12 years I've been on the board, I can only think of a couple instances where it's reached the district level, but any sort of book or material discussion seems to make the news. And so it can be very controversial, it can be very political. We are the ones that approve textbooks if it's a textbook issue. We are on various committees. We're now even, what do you call it, Dr. Blackburn? We're pillars, or we're assigned to a department now? Champions. So does a board member need to be assigned to this committee? I just put that as a question mark. And the other question I had is, you'll notice that a number of people from the school committee are assigned to the district committee. And I questioned the fairness of that. If you're going to assign the same people that are on the school committee to the district committee, you're kind of already predetermining the outcome. And the whole reason I brought this procedure forward are the people that brought it to my attention just want to have a fairness to the committee. That's all. And the question that I ask all of you as you look at this is if you were a parent bringing either a book or a piece of material forward, and keep in mind, this isn't just textbooks. We have textbooks are one thing, but there are a number of teachers that assign outside reading. There are a number of teachers that have all kinds of material in their classrooms that are outside of what we approve through this process. And so the question is, if you were a parent that wanted to have something challenged, would this be a process that you feel is fair? So that is my challenge to you as you look at this.
Anybody else? No? I do, but go ahead.
I guess I'm curious, and I don't know, Ms. Klein, if you would like to address it since you've been working with Ms. Nisi on it, but it seems to me that there is some method to the madness of having one school remove it and not having all others. So I can't imagine that we would do that for no reason whatsoever, so I guess it would be helpful to me to understand what the thinking is there. I think there's got to be something to it, something supporting it that we probably need to know about.
So it's based on the American Library Association. One parent can say, I don't like, or so they bring that book forward, and we look at that as a committee, first starting with the school. Our hope is that this remains a conversation between the parent and the teacher and the principal, and it's resolved there. We're giving other options for a child to read. Typically, it is with our advanced courses, but not always, and students are given the option of choosing other books. If it doesn't, if that's not solved in that small group, then it goes to a school committee, which consists of the principal, it's in the documents, the principal or a designee, a teacher, the media resource teacher, and then if it's still not resolved there, then it goes to the district committee. The reason it is just at that one school is because one parent isn't satisfied with the book. The American Library Association says their recommendation is that it is a challenge material at a specific school. Now, we've never had a case where it's been at multiple schools. And Dr. Reinhardt, Dr. Mullins, and myself, we've known of 2 incidents over the past 6 years where we've had a challenge material come forward. So it is typically just a parent not happy with the book, and then we move forward.
Well, I think it did, because they're following national norm recommendations.
Right.
So to some extent, yes. Yes.
If one school decided that that book wasn't appropriate for their school, to me, that would be a big enough deal that maybe other schools ought to be aware of that book.
If I could, the thinking behind some of that, for years now, perhaps even decades, the push has been for children to read. Read, read, read. I mean, we overemphasize, especially at the earliest ages of school, read, regardless of content. We want adolescent student noses buried in as many books as humanly possible. So if in a school, a committee decides that we no longer want to consider this book, I'm totally for leaving that local decision up to the other communities as well, to work towards being as liberal as possible in allowing people to read. The piece, if we recall, that spearheaded some of this conversation is a very celebrated and awarded piece of literature. Very complicated. I've tried several times myself to read it, and I'm not ashamed to admit I don't get too far in it. The movie even confused me. So it's at a text complexity that hats off to any one of our students that can make it through that book with a good understanding, with a useful understanding of the material. So that's what I would say is some of the thinking of making that decision and conversation a local one. And it should take place, I agree wholeheartedly, teacher, principal, parent should be able to make those decisions, and it shouldn't rise to this level too often, and it hasn't.
Mrs. Klein, it might be helpful, you and I, when we talked, came up with a way to address in those higher level classes. We came up with a new way, because this is where it comes up at. Would you talk to the board about the new procedure that came up that will maybe take care of 99% of these issues now?
So in the syllabus for the classes, we've put an asterisk that these are college-level courses. It's a mature audience. Here are the options for reading. So it's in the syllabus for the parents and the student to understand that it's a college-level course.
In the past, this came up in an AP English course, I believe. And so my suggestion was we need to make it black and white to the parents. This is, even though it's taught in a high school class, it's an AP class, which means they're going to be teaching college material, which means it's going to be at a, it's going to be, some of the material may be for mature audiences, and that the class is not mandatory. So if they choose not to have their child take it, they need to change out to a different class. And so this particular parent and I had to agree to disagree on that just because it's taught in a high school doesn't mean the material may not be college material. If you're going to take a college class, you're agreeing to college material.
And we have optional book choices.
That too. So my understanding is that all of these syllabi now for AP and honors class, well, whatever classes are going to have that level of material will now have something that will be alerting parents that books are at a mature level.
Once all these revisions, we did make that recommendation already, but it didn't go forward till all these revisions were approved or presented.
I've got a question about the formal school level procedure. If I recall correctly, reading that, part of the committee was going to include students?
Yes, that was a recommendation from the work with Mrs. Nisi, that if it's a secondary, a high school, that we offer the representation of students to be on that.
Okay, if it's
not a
high school.
requirement.
Okay, not
No,
K through, okay.
Yes, sir. Only
Yeah,
secondary.
I just want to make sure there's clarification.
Yes.
So, okay,
Yes.
that ends that question. The only other thought I have is, well, thankfully this doesn't happen often, but are we putting extra burden on our school staff by having to go through this formal procedure as opposed to doing it at the district level? I mean,
It really should be, in my opinion, a school-based decision. And again, it is so rare. The school can resolve it if, if everyone works with coherence.
Brownie points for her.
Yeah.
Okay, and hopefully it'll be rare, so it'll be an
Yes.
irrelevant
Yeah.
issue. Okay. Yes, sir?
Yeah, just one more question on that, because I agree with you. I think at the school-based level is exactly the right place. I think that for all the reasons that you stated. But is there then a process in place to share that information with the other schools? Because as you know, that if one thing happened, the social media, everything would take a life of its own, and unless we get the information out to the other schools and say, look, here's what's happened, here's the book or the piece or the work or whatever, and this was the outcome of the school-based committee. Is that, I don't see that written in there.
It's under the very last, the communication, that we would communicate the results of the we would communicate, number 6, notification of the meetings will go district-wide on Blackboard Connect. Then the committee recommendation, the principal and the committee recommendations, the district committee was final at the school. There's somewhere in here, Mr. Craig, and I
Okay, yeah, I
apologize.
see, via Blackboard Board
Yes.
Connect. So it looks like we've thought about it, and, I'm sure, that would just be my concern, is we just make sure we have a consistent message across, and that everybody understands what happened at maybe an individual school, and, but it sounds like we at least have the foundation for that.
Yes, and that's one of the things that Ms. Nisi and I worked on, is that we had clear communication that was concise and that everyone would be receiving that information. So we're not, oh, it just happened here and we're going to keep it here, because we need to let everyone know, because you were right, the public will find out. And it will go over Facebook before we finish a conversation.
Mrs. Henderson?
This is just a little pet peeve of mine.
Yes,
Can we put a date on here, on this
Certainly.
document? So that
Certainly.
we know the last time it's been modified?
Yes, ma'am?
Under
That's
the
all right.
district committee, can we, my question about how many, it just says the principal appoints representatives from the school to join the district level committee. I think there ought to be a maximum number so that the district committee just isn't a remake of the school committee.
You're talking for the district formal?
Now, under number 4, it just says the principal appoints representatives from the school to join the district level committee. So it just, from a parent's perspective, it gives the impression then that the district committee could just become a remake of the school level committee.
Ms. Nisi, under number 1 on there, it says committee members shall include but not be limited to the assistant superintendent of leading and learning, school administrators, and at least 3 parents representing the school grade level from various geographical areas within the district.
And to number 4, then it goes on, it seems like it looks like it's adding to it. Then it says the principal appoints representatives from the school to join that district level committee.
This following roles: school principal, designee, teacher of the same grade level, and then at least 3 parents. We'll definitely look back at that and make sure that we're not looking, the school-based members who shall serve on both committees. Here, it's the very last sentence. The school-based members who shall serve on both committees would include the specialist, the principal designee, and 1 teacher.
I think the point number 4 looks very confusing because it looks like the principal gets to appoint additional people.
Okay, we'll definitely look at that.
Maybe to avoid a tie, you just put a statement that the committee needs to have an odd number of people.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Blackburn and I already talked about that today. Yes.
And how does the board feel about any, I mean, I just put on there, I'm not going to be a board member then, but if you want a board member to be a part of this process at all.
I don't think it's
Doesn't matter to
necessary.
me. I think board member could sit in if they want, but I don't think we need to appoint them.
Our hope is we won't need you for this.
I think just the changes in the AP classes and the syllabus and stuff is going to take care of 99% of this.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right, we are now at board member reports and discussion points. In addition to discussion points, I request board members please include any information requests to be placed on the board assigned task list during this time as well. Here it says we will begin with Mrs. Nisi, who asked to discuss Algebra 1 in a foreign language or and a foreign language?
Como
middle
está
schools.
usted,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Ziegler?
Mrs. Nisi. Well,
Okay, well, as many of you are aware, one of the little jobs I like to do outside of a school board member is I like to tutor students, and primarily in math, but I do some other things on the side, like foreign language. But the reason I picked those 2 is that these are the two most common classes that students take in middle school, which is Algebra 1 and a foreign language. And why I brought these two up is because these two classes are foundation classes for probably 2 or 3 more classes in high school. Algebra 1, as both Dr. Blackburn and I are math teachers, is the foundation for all future math classes. If you're not solid in Algebra 1, your next 3 or 4 math classes are going to be very hard. Your first foreign language class, whether it be Spanish, French, whatever, if your first foreign language class is not solid, your next 2, 3, 4 years of a foreign language are going to be difficult. And if you plan to go to college, you need 2 years of a foreign language. So the reason I bring this up is that many of the parents that I talk to are under the impression that when you take a elective, when you take a high school class in middle school, that unless they get a D or an F, they are not allowed to retake that class in high school. So I have on more than one occasion had students with C's in Algebra 1 go into high school and are told they have to go right into geometry. And I end up working with them for the next 3 years where they would be much better off retaking Algebra 1. And so I talked to Dr. Blackburn about this, and he checked Florida statute, and much to my surprise, he informed me that both middle school and high school, and I'm looking at you just to double check this, if you get a C or a D, no, in middle school, if you get a C or a D, you can retake that class. And that was news to me. And at least the families that I work with beachside and right across the causeway, in fact, one family in particular had to go in and fight because the child had a low C. And they were told emphatically, only if you get a D can you retake the course. And so I'm here tonight to see what we have to do to ensure that our middle school families who are taking high school credit courses know if they have a C or a D that they can retake that class, especially Algebra 1, because these kids are not ready to go on to geometry. And so, Dr. Blackburn, you and I talked a little bit this afternoon. Can we talk a little bit here as a group about what we can do to ensure that our high schools are giving the right information to our families, our middle schools are?
Sure. So the statute that I sent you, it's pretty clear, as you stated. If you are in middle school and you take a high school level course and you pass it with a C, D, or F, you do have the option, guaranteed by statute, to retake that course once you get to high school. And so right now, I mean, that statute, it's also consistent with the procedure, local Brevard Public Schools procedure. So what I would ask the public and any family out there listening, if you are in that boat and you have had that provision guaranteed to you by statute and our procedure taken away from you, then I would offer, that family to email me immediately, and we will research that and make amends.
What I would like is part of the middle school process when they sign up for classes, I think there needs to be something even in that registration packet. I mean, we need to get that information out there because some people aren't even signing up, are afraid to sign up for that course because they don't know they have that option. I think we would have more people try that course if they knew that if they're not successful, or even if that's C, I mean, they want to get that A or B, at least the families I talk to, but they don't think they have an option of retaking it. I know a lot of people who don't think, they think that once they take it, that's it. And that C or D is going to be on their transcript forever, and they don't want to go into high school starting off with a C. And so I know of a lot. I can start making a list of people who don't know that.
Well, certainly, I'd like to have that list. But in general, as we seek to increase the number of kids who not only take but successfully complete algebra in middle school, I don't think it's a far-fetched idea to talk about that option, at the beginning of the year, so we can add that into our communications.
And our counselors, I'm looking back at the back room, our middle school counselors and our high school counselors need to be reminded of this, because the people I've talked to have had their counselors tell them at registration, you are not allowed to retake this. So please make sure our guidance counselors know that as I look back at Jane and Laura, because they're giving our families wrong information.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything on that topic?
And I know we talked about math, but foreign language is the same thing.
I think Dr. Blackburn has that under control, so I'm good with that. Any board members have anything else to report at this time? Mr. Gregg?
Nothing to report. I just have one item that I think when we transition to the new items that are being investigated, or, and I'm not using the right terminology, but the list that FAM is keeping, I think the item that I brought up a few months ago about our process for utilizing women-owned, 8A women-owned, minority-owned businesses in contracts, and how we were going to keep the board apprised of that. I didn't see that on there anymore. I just want to make sure that we didn't, I know you're all working on it, but I didn't see that it was on the list to be followed up on, so.
We're absolutely, saw Ed Parker perk up there when you mentioned that. We are working on that, and I'll get you some timelines on that.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? You've had your time. Been dying to say that for 8 years. Go ahead, Ms. Eason.
Dr. Blackburn, when you talk to the, are you guys going to be talking to emergency management about things that worked and things that didn't work?
I have that to cover in my update here in just a few moments.
Do you want our feedback then, or can I give you one thing that really needs to change? Okay. Back in 2004, when Bob Lay was emergency management, the time that they told the barrier islands to evacuate was not when it started, but when it ended. And this time, when they gave the 3 o'clock on Wednesday, it freaked everybody out on the barrier islands, because they thought people thought that's when we had it to be off. And that's why staff, that's why when people living out on the barrier islands, that's why everything went crazy out on the barrier islands, because they kept hearing this Wednesday 3 o'clock, Wednesday 3 o'clock. Because in the old days, back in 2004, the time that was given by the media was when everybody had to be out. So this time, when they gave us a day and time, people thought that was the way it used to be, and they thought that's when they had to be out, not when evacuations were going to start. So they either need to go back to the old ways or be clear and say this is when it starts, because I can tell you that was the #1 panic from the Pineda down to Melbourne Causeway, is that everybody misunderstood what the day and time meant. #1, which caused parents to go and pull kids out of school, which caused staff to panic, which caused the grocery stores to go crazy, was, and I'm sure it messed up a lot of this, that's why parents were pulling kids out of school, is because they didn't understand what the day and time meant. So if there's anything that could be changed, is they need to go with an end date, not a start date.
I did see a communication that said by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, and I said that can't possibly be right. And I'm sure that helped create a problem. But there was a communication I saw somewhere. I came across it. I was like, what? I go, they can't even get home from school by 3 o'clock. That just didn't make any sense at all. So, yeah, some clarification, and I would imagine an end time would be important. Dr. Blackburn, I didn't know if in your report you were going to mention anything about the EOC and some of the improvements that need to be made in that facility, or if you wanted to save that conversation for another time. And I've talked about that a number of times, and I thought maybe you should touch upon some of your thoughts now that you know how important that facility is to the entire community and how we are an integral part of that. And I don't have any other reports.
So I'll save the best for last, which is ironically Hurricane Matthew. I'll start with a couple of other announcements. So Brevard Public Schools will be holding our 9th annual Food for Thought food drive on October 24 through the 28th to assist our local food pantries. Non-perishable foods, basic hygiene items, and baby products will be accepted at any school or department. On Saturday, November 5, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., District staff and students will gather at the 520 warehouse to prepare the donated items for pantry pickup. I certainly encourage the board to participate if their calendar allows, and staff. Let Pam know if you're interested in volunteering during this packing party. Want to remind many of our aspiring leaders out there that tomorrow night I'll be at Barnes & Noble down in, I believe that's Palm Bay, Melbourne, Barnes & Noble.
Melbourne on 192.
192, discussing the book Coherence. Definitely extend the invitation to everyone to join. I'm looking around the room and I see many of our real men wearing pink. Thank you very much in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And if you haven't done so by now, please go to my Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn page and donate, help me donate to the American Cancer Society here in Brevard. Last but not least, and the board mentioned it earlier, and it's been mentioned several times, but I really can't echo a debt of gratitude and appreciation, respect enough for every employee of this district. I mean, we should all be really, really proud to call them our colleagues, because everyone, just at every level of this organization, just stepped up in an unimaginable way. Sure, there were plans talked about ahead of time, but I'm going to tell you, plans could not have done what we did this past weekend. It came down to women and men just stepping up, working with each other, getting things done in a great way. Our partners were amazing. Cities, the government, FP&L, you mentioned, it was just phenomenal. And then the straw that just sent me over the top was when I saw that article in Florida Today about our students from Titusville High School. And I agree. Perhaps just an example of what was going on, but that was just simply amazing. Our employee groups, Dan Bennett, he left, so I can't pick on him right now, but BFT, BASA, and 1010 actually worked with the senior staff and I on some key decisions on closing, on letting staff go early on Wednesday, and some of those key pieces, and we're also kept in the loop when it was time to return and why we weren't going to return, on Monday. And so hats off to everyone. As a testimony to the commitment, we were not even halfway through the storm before we got clearance on being able to leave. Several of us were held up at Vieira High School. Thank you, Mike Alba. And then we had some very, very courageous staff members back there. And I thought I saw Hannah over there. Did she leave? Yeah, she left. So Hannah and Major Moros there, they were our eyes and ears at the EOC. They spent a lot of time there. I'll just leave it at that. 3 days? Yeah, straight. Yeah. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to spend some time there as well. But again, we weren't even halfway through, and already the staff was talking about sitting down in short order while it's still fresh on our minds and talking about some explicit pluses and explicit deltas. I know I had that brief conversation with Sheriff Ivey as well, and so we're looking at doing that as a county. Clearly way more pluses than deltas. In addition to our relationships, our culture, men and women stepping up, we were also fortunate in that it bumped to the east and that it wasn't as catastrophic as predicted. And so the concern certainly is that a couple of those deltas, given a change in circumstances, could absolutely be problematic for us. But I don't want to do this again, but if I have to do it again, I want to do it right here with these people in Brevard County. It's just an amazing experience. As far as the EOC is concerned, I'll be honest, we've been in conversation now for several months about the need for a new EOC and the opportunity for Brevard Public Schools to help the county government by way in some land that we owned in close proximity to the existing EOC. And I'll tell you, maybe it's just my my fiscal conservativeness, I don't know, but I was having a hard time with the concept of partnering in that way until going through the storm, right? And in the middle of the storm, realizing that power was actually down at the EOC for how many minutes? About 20 minutes, which I can't imagine how long it seemed like in that room when you think of the emergency management hub of this county, #1 activated in the country, going down. So it just echoes the urgency of us receiving a new EOC. And so I know Mr. Theodore and I, we've been discussing on ways and options that we can bring to the board in very short order. I've had a conversation with Commissioner Barfield, and we're looking like October, November, December at the absolute latest in bringing you an option in how we can partner with the county to help them get a new EOC. So that's really, really important. I mean, all hands on deck to ensure our county has what it needs to be able to support all of us in the event of an emergency. So we're doing a bit more research, and we'll bring an option forward to the board to be able to partner with the county.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anybody else have anything for the meeting? Yes, ma'am.
One quick thing, and I promise it will be really, really quick. The one thing not mentioned, which I heard from multiple principals, was the National Guard. When they came in and assisted, phenomenal teamwork, phenomenal support at the schools, especially at a time when our teams were exhausted and facing an enormous amount of cleanup and trying to put things back together for our students to be able to go back to school this week. They were absolutely instrumental in that process. So just a huge shout out to them.
And our residents, okay, our shelterees. I visited several shelters, as many of you did, and just the comments of appreciation, it just left such a humble spirit, I know, in my heart. They were just really, really appreciative of all of our efforts. It's just a great, other than the near natural disaster, it was a great experience.
All right, well, before we adjourn, Mrs. Nisi, next meeting is going to be your last meeting. It's going to be a sad day for VPS, maybe a happy day for you, I don't know, but hopefully we'll have good attendance for your last meeting. And that being that, this meeting's adjourned.